I'm a huge fan for films about vampires and werewolves, and yes, Underworld was a great combination for me as it depicted the feud between both myths of vampires and werewolves. In this film, of course, it's all about vampires and just how in love with music they really are. As I'm making this video, the film Sinners has generated more than $100 million in its opening month in theaters, and obviously it's going to be making even more over the next couple of weeks. Sinners is directed by Ryan Coogler, and the star of the film is Michael B. Jordan. The film was created on a budget of roughly $90 to $100 million, and it's still a big budget film, but not Marvel budget film, I would say. I'm going to add and say that Sinners is another great example of smaller budget films with good writing demolishing bigger budget films with poor writing in a story, like Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Is that gasoline I smell?
Moving on to the plot filled with spoilers. The twins known as the Smokestack Brothers move back to their hometown in Mississippi Delta to build a new life with the money they stole from the mob. They decide to buy a sawmill and turn it into a juke joint, and at the joint's opening night, Sammy, a blues guitarist and cousin of the Smokestack Brothers, plays his songs, which, if you watch the film, summons the spirits from both past and future, basically depicting music through the ages from tribal dancing to hip-hop, and also how Africans are a part of the music genre. But in Sammy's case, it also catches the ears of vampires. Whoopsies! The vampires look just like every other person, are denied access to the building, and they agree to leave. So, the night is filled with wine and music, and everybody is merry. But during the night, the vampires pick off people one by one as they leave the juke joint, and nobody screams when they are attacked, or at least it's not caught on film. Why? Eventually, when Stack gets bitten by a vampire during sexy time and dies, only then does everybody finally start to realize the situation that they really are in. Now remember, the patrons that left the juke joint got picked off and turned into vampires too. They all rushed the juke joint at one point because some stupid character said, "Come in." And this huge fight breaks out between the humans and vampires, and at the end of it all, well, there are survivors who are still human, but very few of the group that were left before the fight. Smoke and Sammy escape, witnessing things that can only be called ghost stories at this point. Smoke goes off to finish some unfinished business, and Sammy spends the rest of his life being a blues guitarist against his father's will. The end. No, not really. The film does not end there just yet. Sammy is seen later as an old man playing blues in a club. Stack, who is supposed to have died as a vampire, walks into the club and asks Sammy to play a song for him to remind him of the good times in the past. And Sammy does play the song for him, and that's where the film really ends, with Sammy as an old man. So, Ryan Coogler, why were you trying to do so many things in the movie? Was this film about race, vampires, music, or was this film actually about family? Because the vampires really laid it on that once you become a vampire and join their family, they'll know the memories of one another. The Native Americans at the start of the film are genuine vampire hunters in the story, and I wish we could have seen more of them because they were the only people the vampire leader was afraid of. The Native Americans could have added more lore to the vampires and the story and how they hunt them, but Ryan Coogler only gave them one scene. Haley Steinfeld plays a woman that gets turned into a vampire and then gets super horny for Michael B. Jordan, and the entire internet is talking about Haley, saying that her man should wife her because of how she was in the film. I didn't see a reason why Haley needs to be talked about so much for her scenes that she did. She played the part well as an actress, and she understood the assignment, okay? What does the music have to do with the vampires in the film? Does this tie with the theory of the music industry here in the real world, where artists sell their soul for fame and fortune? Because Sammy states to the vampire leader, "You are the devil." And the leader also said that he could hear Sammy's songs for miles where they were. So what's up? What's the message between that, Ryan? The end fight scene didn't really get me excited, or that those in the building are in serious danger, as the vampires tried to make a point that being a vampire is better, and that they were a whole big family. So if those left in the building get bitten, they still get to live throughout time and beyond. So there's no really dread or danger that they face in the film besides getting bitten. When the vampire leader dies by being struck with a stake and exposure to the sunlight, and every other vampire dies burning from the sunlight, so how does Stack and Mary survive and appear in 1992 in the club with Sammy? I mean, does that mean that the leader is also not dead? Which would be weird because the way he died is like, no, that's definitely dead. But like, what's the story there, Ryan? What? Why did they survive? How did they survive? Coming back to my first point, I don't really know what Ryan Coogler wanted this film to be, because this was filled with crime, music, mythos, and a lot of racial discrimination all rolled into one film. So it makes you wonder, what are we focusing on when it comes to the story? It was good to see how Smoke deals with his last moments alive, and that he seemed to be the only character in the film to have something to live for, which was, of course, his family. But this family eventually gets taken away from him, and his character dies at the end of the film. Sinners is really one of the better films to come out of this year, but most of the film can be viewed from the trailers alone. So watching the film isn't really new to you, as or new to me, as the trailers spoiled most of about 50% of it already. The film had such a big hype and it delivered below my expectations because of the hype. The bar was raised too high, but delivered enough for me to give this film like an okay rating. Hype is what gets people into the cinema these days, I guess. Part of the advertising is all about the hype. And that hype can actually make or break your expectations depending on what is actually in the film. I guess Sinners is going to be like the MCU because they are planning to produce multiple films in this franchise. That means I'll have to sit through more Irish jigs. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's the rant. Bye!